episode of Broken and Brave by Deborah Rice Movement. Good evening to every one of you. Last week, we inaugurated the scholarship program and the abuse victim support programs. This is the first of its type. It's a storytelling program. Stories impact us. They bring awareness. We are all preoccupied with three ever competing stories. The first, the good and the hopeful story of how we wish our tomorrows will be, our expectations, our dreams, our Instagram, our Facebook pictures of who we want to be. And the second, the true realistic story we actually experience, our real life worlds and personal histories. Then the third, the beautiful, meaningful story that what we see. It makes someone to say, wow, it's just love that's more than love. The difference between seeing a beautiful sunlight in an image or a picture and a beautiful sunlight in reality. The story of us that transforms our lives and even others. This beautiful personal story of ours is connected to the master story, the big story of God. We become characters of God's big story. He is the master craftsman and he is writing our stories. Sometimes our life seems to be full of brokenness, broken relationships, broken promises, broken expectations. Through all twists and turns, we finally end up in a dead end and we look up and say, God, I see you now. All those brokenness seems to make sense at that time. And we understand that God uses even that brokenness to build bridges to others. Let me give you an example. Imagine purchasing a new iPhone. And what will you do? You will upload and fill it with your most favorite memories like songs, videos, pictures. Sometimes you might even delete what you hate or fear. It's like our brains. These iDevices behave like our brains that hold our stories, our secrets, our weaknesses, and even our fears. It's always good to look back and find the signpost of God. I am very bad geographically. One day I tried to find a new destination to give a bunch of my books to some place. I tried to find that place and finally I took a wrong turn and my phone went on rerouting. And finally at one point it froze and never showed any way. So I had to find my own way. So I called on God, pictured out a new route. And finally, there were signs that same way when life brings up us to a dead end, we cry out to God and God shows signposts. He leaves signposts everywhere. Sometimes our desires, our egos, our roadblocks to seeing God's path in our life. Sometimes we allow other people or things to become our new gods. We let our phones guide our journeys. We let our WhatsApp guide our journeys. We let technology and false idols to guide us. And finally, we get on our screen flashing news, breaking news, and system failure. And then finally, we take the right path, right? That's what all these stories are about, broken and brave. Our life stories are subplots within a bigger, interconnected, unfolding God's plan. So the details are more evident only when something extraordinary happens that gives us a hint of God's fondest vision for us. I believe it's God who is writing our stories, and we should allow him to write it. We need to understand God's plan to restore a sense of wonder in our lives, and which can help us to realize that we are part of an interconnected family, a cause, a purpose, and a destiny much bigger than ourselves. So it's always good to tell our story because human beings are story-shaped creatures. We are born into stories, raised in stories, and live and die in stories. Whenever we have to answer a big question, who am I? Why am I here? What will happen after I die? So at that time, anytime when we face such questions, we tell a story. Deborah Rice movement also has a story. It started first when the first lockdown was imposed. A few women rose up to support the abused and feed the hungry. The vision of that movement is to be the voice for the voiceless and hope for the hopeless. And the movement has now counselors, advocates who helps the abused and suffering for free. Voluntarily, every member does their work. Our helpline number is 8801 858585. People can also contact us directly through our website, and they can reach out to our counselors, psychologists, and psychiatrists for free. Despite the horribly abusive situations people face, there is a hope. That's what our counselors are there. So, and our counselors are great in counseling people who are equipped to counsel people who are abused, who are depressed. And many times abusive situations make the life flame to flicker. Sometimes it even snips out the passion and the determination. But through the grace of God and through counseling, one can rise up like phoenix and move forward to get a better and beautiful life. That is all everything is about, because we always think when we build the world's kingdom, we search for someone who is whole, who is intelligent, who is beautiful, who is great and everything. But God doesn't search like that. He is the God of the unsuccessful. He is the God of those who have failed. I think heaven is filled with earth's broken lives, and there is no bruised reed that Christ cannot make it whole. And he can take the life crushed by pain or sorrow and make it a beautiful harp that can sing his glory. So now abuse is the worst thing. And when abuse is spoken about, why people wonder why women are spoken about. Violence against women are mostly spoken about. Why? Because as many statistics say that 1 in 4 women are abused and 1 in 9 men are abused. So the dynamics of the abuse of men are similar to that of women, but they have a fear of that they may be falsely accused because they are big and they are strong. So they have a little different problem. Since many cases are from women in India, our movement mostly concentrate on women, and we also have male counselors who deal with male victims of abuse. So you can contact us, whatever problems you may have, you can contact us. It's not only about abuse, it's about widowed, it's about depression, it's about job failure, it's about accident or disease, whatever reason you have, you're feeling down in your life, we are here to support. So all our life is just a tapestry, the coming together of this beautifully woven creation. And this depends on every twist and turn the thread is supposed to take. And God, the master craftsman, makes every thread of experience, every turn of events count in the long run by putting it together. He meets us in our brokenness and restores us something more glorious. That's why we named this episode Broken and Brave. We can also add broken, brave, and beautiful. The aim of this episode is to reveal to the world how God can use broken, shattered vessels and fill them with his love, compassion, and power. The world breaks many, but some becomes beautiful in their broken places. The purpose of this episode is to interview such brave and beautiful ones. I was praying and waiting for players for this episode. It looked as though some unseen hand kept sending more and more women into my path. But many were mute because of their circumstances, except a few who had rose up to such boldness because of the grace of God. Pramila is one such broken and brave lady who came into my path recently. I used to go to Ashraya whenever my sons visit India. Me and Pramila had made eye contacts, but we had never spoken. She says that she liked me a lot and she felt like talking to me, but we have never done that. Recently, through one of my brothers, she got my number and she called me. I'm not sure what made her to confide in me her full story for the first time. I think she felt that I had seemed to understand her intuitively, and she could tell me everything in the first time. I was driving back home and she started her story. A full silence from my side. At the other end, finally, she has to ask me, "Are you there?" It looked as though she was reciting some part of my story. 20 years of struggle, the false hopes, the false promises, the betrayal, meeting God in the thorny path, all resonated. So I decided that she will be the first player in the first episode. So now let me introduce you, Pramila. She is 42, a bright entrepreneur who runs her own recruiting firm. She has two children, a 20-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter. She got divorced 2 years back after living in an abusive relationship for 20 long years. The burning desire behind speaking out her story is to lead victims of abuse away from the shadows of abuse and to help them rebuild that which was destroyed, like dignity, self-respect, and a desire for life. So now let us come to our show. Pramila, you said that you were bold in your younger days. But I'm not sure if you were bold, how did you allow yourself to be abused? And can you tell me a little about your childhood and about your parents?
Sure. Sure. Thank you so much, Latha, for giving me the platform to speak here. Thank you so much for starting this ministry. It's amazing. And I pray that many women will be touched who are going through that kind of a phase. And I pray that the Lord will encourage them through my story. So, yes, I was naturally a very bold person because I was brought up in a family that was well educated, especially from my father's side. So I studied in a convent and grew up in a very cosmopolitan society. My mother brought me and my siblings up with an iron rod, but my father was a very, very kind and gentle-hearted person who wouldn't even address us rudely. And this was my image of a man. So we had a very big joint family where we had 16 cousins staying together in one room. It was a very big house. And my childhood was really awesome. And that actually helped me to be a very, very independent woman. Yeah.
Okay, Pramila, if yours was a joint family, who arranged your marriage? Was it your parents, or did you get into love and get married? And what about your husband's family? Can you throw some light about it?
Of course. So, yeah, it was an arranged marriage, and it was from my father's side. So, this was a distinct relative of my father, whom I had never seen ever from my childhood days or assist to. She suddenly appeared and she spotted me and pursued me. I wanted to complete my education, so she waited for me and to be her future daughter-in-law. So I had barely finished my third year college, after which within 8 days I was married off, and the family had a bar and restaurant business. So we were unaware of this, alcoholic issues, the addictions, and the mother carefully covered it up for years till I got married. So yeah, this was an arranged marriage.
Oh, okay. So how did it go? Can you tell me about your husband's family and after your marriage, what
Yeah,
happened? Everything was fine?
everything looked good, fine, but just within 20 days, the abuse started. So one fine day, I went to serve him a glass of Horlicks malt, which he usually takes in the morning. So when he was getting ready to office, yeah, so he just took it from my hand, shouted at me for bringing it late, and poured it all over me. It was,
Oh
it just poured
God.
the liquid on me. Yeah,
Was it
so
too
that was
hot?
the first time I went through that. That was first time. Yeah,
Was it very hot?
yeah, it was slightly hot, but what hurt me most, I felt insulted actually, and I never expected that. So, because this was something new, I've never experienced it in my family back, and I'm beginning to see somebody so strange and so rude. So it was unacceptable, and moreover, he left for his job even without apologizing to me for what he did. as if it was his right to, treat me that way. Yeah.
So did the abuse increased, or where was it afterwards everything was fine? But you were telling that you were strong-willed. So
Yeah.
what happened?
So I was really taken back with that experience, and I wanted to leave. Actually, I was very strong because being the eldest in my micro family, I used to do all the jobs of taking care of my siblings and all. So I wanted to leave to my parents' house immediately because I didn't take that. But his mother wouldn't allow me. She convinced me that since he had too many tensions, I should take care of him and he will be fine. So, however, the abuse never stopped, and from that day, the abuse increased more. He used to abuse me under the pretense of him getting late to office and all silly reasons. So, yeah. So, one day when I was quickly ironing his clothes so that he doesn't get late, he just came and he put the iron box on my hand. And it did, I mean, it was extremely hot and it stung me. So, these are the kind of things that which was in the initial stage, so I couldn't understand, and I wanted to, you know desperately do something about it.
This is really unbearable.
Yeah.
Actually, many times Indian parents think that everything will be good. And that's when they don't think that something can like this can happen.
Yeah.
Once they get married, they'll be happy. That's what they all believe. Yeah, so I just advise every parents who trust, who get allow their daughters to go to some other house to keep a close watch initially. There is sometimes this lifestyle of abuse, and it doesn't come to the notice even for a long time. Why did you stay? Why didn't you tell your parents? Why did you stay?
So, however, I had some good time too. The man, after abusing, would make up for his abuse with several stories for the behavior, and used to take me out for movies, dinner, shopping. He was fantastic at that, and he was pretending as though he was obsessed with me. He loved me a lot, and I used to get confused with the pampering that followed it. But I was also too broken and, hurting inside. This happen often, and it's like one week I will be facing abuse, and the other week I will be facing a pampering and a queen kind of a treatment from him. Yeah.
Every marriage has their share of the problems. And it would be difficult to find a couple who has never faced any problems. But abuse and violence is totally different. The hallmark of an abusive relationship is a systematic pattern of control through violence. Pramila's marriage was full of false promises, crocodile tears. Her relationship every day started with a fresh hope that a new day will be different and the abuse will finally end.
Yeah.
Every now and then she was telling that she used to be covered with bruises on her arms.
Yeah.
And she used to look at that. And then next day when he looks at it, he would break down, cry and say, okay, I will take you out. I'm sorry. And all such things. Finally what happens, such abuses make a person a mere vegetable. And the most important part of this one is the abuser lays the blame on the victim entirely. Because of your behavior, I had to hit you. If you wouldn't have hit her, she cannot behave properly, right? That's the way abuser convinces. So if you see abusive situation, you can see it's a three-stage cycle. The first one is attention building phase. During this phase, the abuser partner, he stockpiles every little grievances, every little disappointments, and he twists her words. He tries to portray her as something that everything is her fault. The victim gets awful lot of fear, and she cannot do anything right so that to please him. So this stage can last for months or hours or for weeks. And finally, the stage is more scary because then it will build up. And the second stage is battering stage. During the stage, a small issue can make the abuser burst with screaming, hurtful, and frightening aggression and dominating, controlling his partner. And she was telling that he was pouring that Horlicks on her face and anything. Then comes to the honeymoon stage. After the abusive phase, most of the abusers get ashamed, express regret, that the violence happened, and they are sorry for that, and they will promise that it will never happen again. They might take the victim to the doctor, they may take her out for a dinner, and they will try to please her. So this is the way it happens. This cycle put a lot of pressure on the victim. And such an abusive man doesn't look to be an abuser outside. He looks to be a very beautiful gentleman. And that's when hope springs in the woman's heart, and she believes and believes that he will change. My heart goes for such victims. So, Pramila, so I know you might be in that situation, but how did his family react when he abused you?
So it was a joint family, so all the other family members were very indifferent to me. They never tried to help me. His father was the least bothered one as to what is happening in the house, and his mother was very, very abusive verbally along with him. So there was absolutely no help. She knew I was really unhappy, and since being a distant relative to my dad's family, she always tried to manipulate the entire incidents happening to me because her son was obsessed with me. That's what she told me. And she would tell me that this is common between husband and wife, and I should not report this to my parents. She had put me into a course of dusting the entire house. I used to start my work at 7 a.m. and complete it by 1 p.m. And immediately she would give me other jobs so that I would get exhausted most of the time. And this is her way of tackling me so that my mental and physical well being was arrested and I would not be in a position to take any action against their ill treatment. She had the members of the family household just watch me every movement I made in the house. So I couldn't escape from their house. Many times I would try and it would fail. That's what's my situation. Yeah.
Actually, in Pramila's case, there are two abuses. It was both his mother and him. So first you see how they caught hold of her. Her mother-in-law went after her for 3 long years, and she found a perfect victim who can become a slave in their house. So she went after her and she forced them to get her married to her son. Exactly at when she finished her studies. It is the same way an abuser does. He says that I need you, you are the best person. And finally, they bring them into their trap like a spider web. You can see a spider, there's a web, and the spider gets trapped into it. In the same way, they lay a trap and they isolate the victim. Once they get into the trap, they isolate the victim and they isolate them from their friends, they isolate from their parents. And they search for a perfect person who can make their home happy, who can do something for their home. But no one else helped her. No other in their family, everybody just looked at her. Martin Luther King Jr. said, the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people. So it is time for us to stop being uninvolved and stop being just as spectators to the abuse that is happening around us. We need to fight for our sisters, fight for our brothers who are caught in the mesh of every kind of violence. So that's what I wanted to say. But Pramila, your parents loved you so much. So
Yeah.
didn't they try to contact you or try to find out something is different is going on? Or didn't you contact them? Why everybody remained silent?
Yeah. Yes, they did try, but they would just hold something and send back. But I tried my best. See, those days we had landline phones. If you remember, mobiles were not everybody's thing. So I wanted to call my parents and let them know what was happening, but I couldn't do it because there was a constant surveillance on my movements. So she had to inform every moment. The sister-in-law had to inform every moment in the house to this mother-in-law. One day I lost my patience and questioned my ex-husband why he was doing this to me. In response, he and his mom started abusing me verbally and stated that the woman should not raise her voice. A woman should not, she should keep quiet when the husband is angry. She should not look into her husband's eyes and lift up her head and speak to him. She should look down and talk. And I tried, and my parents also tried. They were suspicious of, something amiss, and it was because it was just early stages, and I was not able to understand what was happening. And they also tried, they felt it actually, and they came many times. So contacting them was difficult to do that over the landline, and it was like this. Yeah.
You know, this is a difficult situation. Many people get confused. You take a abuse victim to a counselor, to a marriage counselor, and finally, in before the counseling, the victim looks like an abuser and the abuser looks like a victim because of their crocodile tears, the way how they portray themselves. So this is an abusive environment is so difficult to find out. So that's when we should understand the dynamics of abuse if you want to help an abuse victim. And what you will be seeing is just the tip of an iceberg. An abuse, a victim will get so scared to tell you out because they will have a fear whether others will believe them. The abuser will look very good outside, so the abuse victim will get so scared whether can I tell this problem to others? And even if they tell, will they be able to help us? So that is the reason they don't tell to anyone. They don't tell to their parents. Sometimes they might get sad that if their parents will feel sad and they couldn't do anything. They will not be able to do anything.
Yeah.
So let's come to Pramila.
Yeah.
So now, what happened once you try to tell your parents? Did the abuse stop when they came to know that you are trying to tell your parents? Did the abuse stop or it increased?
It increased. It increased because, in spite of my parents coming and justifying, they were told that, your daughter is not, she doesn't know anything. She doesn't know how to cook. She doesn't know how to clean. She doesn't respect her husband. She doesn't take care of him. She doesn't love him, and she doesn't know how to respect the in-laws. So she's completely unfit for any kind of, family life. So he the whole thing was about, identity crisis, calling me bad names, which I couldn't tell anybody outside because I've never heard such name words in my life as a youngster. And he had no respect for women. I was beaten sometimes with a broom, chased with the knife, slippers, slapped at times, and the whole family just watched. So that was what shocked me, and I was in a kind of a mental, you know, freeze kind of a situation. I couldn't think much. And his mother kept on blaming me that his heavy drinking is because of me, that I didn't love him enough. And, I used to feel guilty and would wonder, how do I make this proper? I mean, I've already got married. So obviously the first choice is you try to do things right, right? So this is how I chose to keep quiet, thinking this is supposed to be like this. I mean, I love to go with it. And yeah, and even during my first pregnancy, I faced a lot of mental torture. My pregnancy was the most difficult period. I was so traumatized by them that I wished I'd die at times. But yes, I was also tough enough, I think, to tolerate it and foolish enough to believe that one day it'll all be fine. So my delivery was also very complicated, as the doctor said. I was very stressed, and yeah, I after that we have a culture of staying with my parents' house. So I was constantly being even harassed and called there. So it became difficult. Yeah, and I got pregnant again, and with my second baby, and this time they didn't want this baby, telling that I'm not fit to be a mother for a second child because I'm not taking care of the first one. So they forced me with medicines and aborted the child. Yeah.
Oh. So they try to abort your baby also.
Yeah, they did.
That is
They
too
did.
horrible.
It was
Abortion
two
is
and a
not
half
like,
months pregnant I was. Yeah.
oh God. So you didn't resist at that time. You would have, what did you do for that?
I did. I never wanted, in spite of begging and pleading, they didn't listen because they would take away my son. He was only 2 years old and very small. So they would take away my son, and they were trying to, give it to one of their family cousins who was medically unfit to have to bear children. So I had no choice, and I wanted my son with me. I was traumatized and completely crushed in my soul. It was the most painful experience in my life because at that time I did not know abortion was killing life. So yeah, this all created tremendous pressure and fear in me very soon from a bold person, I was turning into something else. I was reduced to a helpless and frightened person, and also gave into the abuse with no way around, since I did not know how to respond to this kind of behavior. So I guess his mother enjoyed seeing this, that I'm getting abused. Many times my parents came and many times they were turned back. So this was like a vicious circle, an ongoing process going on. And even if they got angry and questioned them, they with the abusive marks on my body, uh, they were like sent away telling that my upbringing was not good enough. So abuse increased over the years. That's it. Yeah.
So hers is a typical domestic violence case. You can
Yeah.
see how they try to put the blame on her and her family. And see, she turned from a bold person to a very
Yeah.
frightened one. Abuse can make such a way. Anybody can be turned into a vegetable because of abuse. You feel one day you're put in a hot water, the next day you're taken out and put in a cold water. It's like going high and up and down in a roller coaster. Suddenly you go up and suddenly you come down screeching down.
Yeah.
So it puts a person to a mental torture, and this is too difficult to express also, because you look so great and smiling outside, but within you, you carry a festering wound inside. And mostly they say that abuse increases with years. That's why I have seen many people, one politician wife sometime back came out at 65 years of age from a husband. So what happened in your life? Did the abuse increase or decrease?
Yeah, the abuse was increased. I was in my in-laws' house for 3 years after my marriage and underwent torture in their hands for those many years. The abuse increased, followed by, excessive pampering. This was a vicious cycle. I saw no way to escape. And his drinking habit was beyond control. And the other member of the family did nothing but watch. So the torture was unbearable. I ran away to my parents' house many times with my child because even my son was not spared. He was manhandled often, like, very roughly handled. My parents were not in a position to take care of me or understand as to how they could help me. Even if they wanted to keep me with them, he would come and take away the child forcibly because he knew automatically I would return, for my baby. So my parents were helpless and would send me back again and again saying things will change one day, it'll all be fine. So I couldn't live without my son. So I used to go back. By then I was unable to bear the continuous abuse from him and his mother. Yeah. Yeah.
So, a child within 3 years, whatever happens to him, it affects the brain. That's why children witnessing violence from the home gets affected a lot. Within 3 years, your brain gets formed. So many children who see the abuse in their family, they become violent later. Sons who see the abuse, they become abusers, and daughters who see the abuse, they become victims later. So this is a intergenerational cycle of abuse. Unless you break it, it is so difficult. Every child who is frightened and who is seeing such things in their family is traumatized, and they get that. So it's called legacy of abuse. So the best decision in this case is, if you don't want your child to be put through all these things, you need to run away from abuse or expose the abuse and try to tell to the world that this is not right. And once the abuser really changes, that is only possible in some cases. Unless he touches the rock bottom, he doesn't change most of the time. And you said that you are going to go back to your parents' house, right?
Yeah.
After you went back to your parents' house, who supported you? Did you get a job or something? Because you just then completed your studies, you said. And
Yeah.
after that, what happened?
Yeah. So my parents were very gracious enough to receive me, and they stood by me. My in-laws came with the help of him and tried to take me back, but they never gave into it. They never gave. So they never let me. And they protected me. They were just waiting because they knew that I would not survive this, and the best decision was to, support me at this point of time. So they did the best decision of supporting me and taking me back, me and my son. I did join a job. I got a very good job as a marketing professional, and I was like a go-getter there. I was, good at my job. So yeah, I started working.
Okay,
after
good. So you were able to concentrate on your work there at that time. How was
yeah,
your work? What did you
yeah.
do?
So I was able to concentrate and do well. Within just a month, he turned up with all his
Oh,
belongings and clothes with a very apologetic face, saying that he's very sorry and he wants to, change and wants to be a normal husband and wants to live with me. And the child needed a father and I needed support. My parents were not in this actually, so I did give him a chance because I he gave me an impression by his manipulation that I felt my mother-in-law was responsible for whatever happened in their house for those 3 years. So I did accept him and told him that okay, fine. And but within a month, I think we moved out because my parents were very confident. They never trusted him, especially my mom. She said that don't go back. I don't trust him at all. So I mean, I didn't listen to her. I went against them and told him to make a house near my parents' house because I didn't want to put them through this unfair deal of him staying with my parents. So he did make a house actually, and we stayed in that house. Yeah,
so you gave him chance after chance after chance,
yeah,
right? You
yeah, and
believed all his promises and his tears and
yeah,
his cries. Yes.
yeah.
Then what happened?
So he did behave very well in my parents' house, and then we went away to the other house. As soon as we started our life in this new house, again the same cycle of alcoholism and abuse started. Like a tsunami. I was like shocked, and my parents had warned me about it, and I had no face to go back to them and tell them that I've done a wrong thing. So I lived with that abuse, tolerating it again and again. And this affected my job so badly that from a go getter, I started becoming a non performer. I was hopping from one job to another, depressed, broken. It also affected my son to such an extent that I used to go to school and the teachers used to tell he's so lonely sitting there, doesn't play with anybody, holds on to his bag tightly, and he is not involved in any of the activities. So both of us were in. I mean, I didn't know how to help myself and I didn't know how to help my son, so both of us were like in the same phase of the repercussions of what we were going through in the house.
See, you see, an abuse affects the job, abuse affects everything. Her son was showing more anxiety. He was showing more anger. He was violent. He was violent in the house. He was violent outside. And he was having the rage inside because at an early age, these children realize that the importance of power and control, and they can ensure this by domination, they can be in a higher place. So some people get, many of the children get panic attacks, they get sickness, they get nightmares, and that is why it's wrong to put a child through such an abuse.
Yeah.
So then what happened?
So he kept an account of my salaries. He took away as soon as it used to come, saying that we need to save this money for my son's future. So I believed I was not a stable person. I was mentally weak and I didn't trust in myself at all because of whatever I was going through. I used to half the time think I was responsible for things and I was at fault. So and couldn't help my son in any recreational activities which he was interested, like sports and any other things. So, I mean, it just went on and on till, and on the seventh year of our marriage, I conceived again. And as my health condition was very bad, I couldn't work anymore. So I stayed back at home. By now, I had become immune to abuse. And it was like normal to me. I was just waiting, just waiting that, okay, it's okay if I die. So, I tried committing suicide also twice, but somehow I survived and returning to the abuser was like normal to me. It became a part of my personality, like get angry, go back, come back from your parents house and again start a family, and all the things becomes normal. So the abuse became very normal to me and my son. We were living with it.
I just wanted to at this time break and tell one advice. If you see her relationship was topsy turvy. So it's really important. that we should understand it. That is something called heartbreak. Heartbreaks create such dramatic emotional pain. Our mind tells us that the cause might be something dramatic, and our gut instinct is so powerful, it can even make the reasonable to feel that something is wrong with us. I think we need to change, and we need to change and go back, and everything will become normal. So Pramila thought that her husband was so obsessed with her, and so he was trying to make up after every fight, and her mind tricked her into initiating this wild goose chase. That's why she was staying there for a long time. Many ask and abused women, so many years, why did you stay? 10 years, 20 years, it's such a long time. Why did you stay? It's better to ask an abuser why you are abusing instead of asking an abused one. Because heartbreaks, the heart hopes for, everybody wants love, everybody wants a family, they want to get that something back. So they might think something is wrong with me. Brain studies have shown that the withdrawal of love activates the same mechanisms in our brain that gets activated when addicts are withdrawing from substances like cocaine and opiates. So that's when you feel something, that abuser will show so much of love after the abuse. So you feel you need that love. Otherwise, you cannot go back. That's a reason. That's why you keep going down one rabbit hole after another, unless until the end you become like a dead person. So it's called the withdrawal symptom because your heart break. And so every time you move away from him, you just try to think of the good things, everything, your memory lane. You just go back to your memory lane. Every text you send, every love messages he sent, you will feel you have to go back to him. But at that time, it's better to write down in a paper and keep it near your phone what all things, what all ways he has broken your life, what all ways he has made you to commit suicide, what all ways he has made you to look like a dead person. So everything, that exhaustive way of writing down will help you not to end up in another heartbreak. So let us come to her thing. So she stayed for a long time. Now, now you have passed around 7 years of your life, right?
Yeah.
After that, what happened?
Now comes the most amazing part of my story, where it was the seventh year, and as I told, I had conceived again. So, and I couldn't work, so I stayed back at home. So this was a wedding anniversary, and he wanted to spend time in his mother's house. But he came back drunk at around 9 p.m., and that entire night he abused me in front of his mother. I was feeling so miserable that at home I was fine, but coming to another place and again getting more, abuse was something I couldn't. I cried a lot that day because I was 5 months pregnant. I was so hurt. So early morning, again the same sorries as usual, and he became very kind, as if he didn't know what he was doing under the effect of alcohol. So he took me to, we went to a temple because it was a wedding anniversary to pray. So the worship was going on in the temple. And since I was so hurting, I looked upward to the sky as it was an open temple, and I cried out pitifully. These are the words I use. If there is any living God in this universe, please come and rescue me. So exactly after 7 days, this is what happened. A family comes to stay in my neighborhood, which lived exactly next door, and they had a worship time in the evening somewhere on Wednesday, and this was like a Bible studies, I guess. So I heard a small child sing, "My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty. There is nothing my God cannot do." So that voice kind of touched me, touched my soul. I felt as if I was sitting near, an oasis after walking in a hot desert. And I'm like quenching my thirst with that pure cold water. It was as if I had found something my soul could rest on. And I sat on the floor and listened the entire worship they were doing. So we had a small dog those days, which was gifted by my sister. So I had taken the dog for the walk the next morning, and I got talking to this new neighbor. So she invited me to join her Wednesday evening prayer, which they hosted in their house. So in my mind, I had decided that I would never go because I never used to visit any friends or any neighbors' houses in my life. I had stopped that, as soon as this all started, the marriage thing. So during those 7 days, my son got very close to their kids, and he was 6 years old, and he found friends to play. So every evening he would come from school, and before I could greet him, he would be in their house. He would run up to their house. So a week went by, and my son by this time had become very good friends with the neighbors' kids. So he was adamant that I come along with him to their house for this prayer meeting. So very reluctantly, I attended this meeting, and the topic of their discussion that day was from the book of John, chapter 1, verse 1, which says that the darkness cannot overcome the light. I was so shocked. I always thought the darkness had covered my life, and there cannot be any light that can, shoo this darkness away. So I was so touched, and the people over there prayed over me, and I felt tremendous light enter me. I felt light I felt lighthearted. It reduced my burdens of feeling in my body. And I also experienced some relief in my womb as if I was released from some cramps. So I started my journey with my Lord Jesus Christ, but I did not immediately give my life to Him. So I was beginning to understand, just testing this kind of faith. So the process had begun, and the first thing God gifted me was financial freedom. I got an opportunity to work from home for recruitments, and yeah, even there, my ex-husband was trying to manipulate as to how much money I was making. But by then, this friend had pushed me more into the word of God so much that God, in His own wisdom and goodness, had given me the power to think, and wisdom not to reveal to him anything, as if nothing was happening. I was never telling him that I met somebody like this in the neighborhood. Nothing he knew. So I also received a contract to hire from a company, and I had no resources like computer, phone, or database at home. By, but this living God provided every need of mine amazingly through different sources without me asking them. It came so beautifully. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was too good to be true. But learned how to pray to Jesus for my every need and saw Him make it happen for the most unlikely people ever. So I was able to make enough money for my own delivery, as my parents also were not well to do at that time. So I learned how to resist the devil, pray, command the devil to leave, which was operating through this person. He stopped abusing me as a result of that for a long while. And I was so thrilled with the experience that God was slowly delivering me from the fear that I was arrested in for so many years. I was beginning to see my deliverance occur. But an abuser has a pattern. They can never stop abusing, and due to God given wisdom, I learned I could stand up against the abuse. I was I was able to take the help of the cops. I had also taken the support from a women's right organization called Vimochana. I learned from the word of God that He has given me a spirit of power and not of fear. And this kind of legal action caused my ex to be careful and not to abuse me. So these complaints to the police were becoming very frequent, and that was the only way I could protect myself and my children. The physical abuse had stopped, but the verbal abuse had not ended. He was still abusing us whenever he was drunk. We tried to help him with the, like AA rehab, but he wouldn't even want to go there because he never acknowledged that he was an alcoholic addict. So by 2009, I had put my faith completely in Jesus and made him the Lord and Savior of my life. So my ex-husband's alcoholism was the biggest issue we were facing now. He knew he couldn't abuse me anymore because of legal actions I would take. So this abuse had shifted slowly to my son in the form of disciplining him. All what I want used to suffer, my son was suffering, getting abused, because of which there was huge fights in the house. I was unable to understand how to stand up against what was happening to him, and I could do what I could do is just fight back and protect him. So in the midst of all this, God also empowered me with the company I had started. I started my recruitment firm in 2009 called Lord I System Staffing Solutions. So it was a miracle because I had no money to register my company. I want to tell you how I started. So I chose not to tell anybody about my desire to start this company, but spoke this to the living God about it. The money for that came for the registration. We had to register those days for service tax. So I had no money at all. So the money that came was from such an unlikely source who felt they had to give me some odd amount of cash. It was the exact amount I needed to travel to and for from the registrar's office and pay for the registration. So I finally began my company and it gradually grew and took off well. Meanwhile, at the same time, even my ex-husband, I mean, started a company which was into outdoor business. So we got busy with that business thing. And for few years, I really got busy developing my business, traveling a lot, and not realizing my son was slowly getting really rebellious and hard-hearted because of what he was going through from the father. So I tried to take him to church, but it was not of much help to him. So staying in the shelter of an abuser who is an alcoholic addict was truly wrong on my part because how much ever I tried to make things work for us as a family, he never really worked. It never really worked because every time I tried to set things right for the children's sake, his behavior used to water down everything. So at the end of one day, I put a full stop. I put down my foot and said, "No more of this rubbish." And this was, I think, in the year 2018. So where I couldn't balance family life and job life because I had grown a lot through various branches of in Mumbai, Bangalore, and other nations. So my son was also not listening to me, was going out of my hands and doing all the wrong stuff. So it was like I found myself in a point zero where I didn't know what to do again, and I went up to this living God again. So uh, I just put on my foot and said that no more of this thing. Either he stays with the children or I stay. It cannot be both of us under the same roof. So he chose this that you stay and I will walk out because the father son fights were severe. It was like so violent and not possible to control at all. So there was an incident where my child had a knife with him and he was almost, at a verge of killing. And in this kind of a situation, I would lose both my husband and my son. So I stopped it, and he chose to walk out of the house and give up on this and would stay outside so that I can raise them up. I made it very clear that if he doesn't leave the house, I would leave with him with the kids. So he conveniently went away and took all his clothes and walked away. So this really surprised me because this was something very different what happened. Every time I would have told him to walk out of a house many times, but he has not done that for so many years, and this was the first time he left us actually. So during those so I was under the impression that probably he did what was right, since he was unable to take stock of his alcoholism. He did what is right for the children, just to realize just after 3 months uh, my child actually revealed or opened up her mouth about his relationship with a women employee of his in the office. So I was so shocked. She confessed to me that her father had a relationship with this woman. He and his staff had gone out on an office trip to a place, Goa, and he had taken my daughter as well. It was there she happened to see them together, and the entire trip they were behaving like couples who are, very, loving couples who are very intimately behaving. So I did confront him with the child, to which he refused and instead called his daughter a liar. I called up that woman, and when I questioned her about what my daughter witnessed, she was silent about it, and she continued working with him. So I was really very hurt as I felt I was wasting my time trying to do good to an abuser who went ahead and even cheated on me. So he went about telling all my relatives and friends that this woman is his sister and that me and my daughter are manipulating about him. He also made her tie Rakhi and click photos of her tying Rakhi on his wrist and shared viral the picture, shared the picture with all his relatives and made sure that it went viral. And what bothered me most is that he did not care that we were so hurt. He hurted us, and instead of protecting and taking care of our feelings, he protected the virtue of that woman and his own identity. So I decided to file for a divorce. The divorce happened in November 2019. So it did not end there. He was still pursuing me many, many times and even tried to emotionally fool us, telling that he's dying, he's got a disease, and all the properties somebody else will take. So, God, in His own love and protection in this difficult period for me and my children, used to bring to my knowledge his relationship had continued with that woman. His alcoholism never stopped, and he was just lying and manipulating all the time. So we decided to quit completely and yeah, and focus on my business and my children, so that I mean I have a better place to think about, better things to do in life. So it was such a waste of time. He was a chronic liar and an alcoholic abuser, and now an adulterer. So sadly, his lifestyle has not changed. And what I have learned from the Word of God is repentance is change in behavior. The person should not continue lying and manipulating. So this is my story, and me and my children live happily together now. Yeah, and my business is again back.
Thank you so much for telling your heartbreaks and your
Yeah.
pain to us. And I hope that your story will be an eye opener for many. You know, this is when a victim moves out, it is a normal character of an abuser to tell that she has a relationship with someone, or she is lying, or she is doing this one. Everything put the blame flat on them, and a victim will never move out unless she has gone to the rock bottom. You know, for her, her husband's abuse didn't matter much, but when she came to understand that he's also betraying her, her heart broke. That's when she went for a divorce. And now at this point, I said that Deborah Rice movement has both counselors and advocates. So I have one question to each of them before going to the panel discussion. We have Rachel Ellis with us. She is one of our senior counselors who helps every abuse victim. So now I had a question earlier, and that I posed to one of the uh, great counselor in the US. His name is Lundy Bancroft. He has written a book called Why Does He Do That? Inside the Minds of Angry and Controlling Men. I have written a letter to him because at that period, I wanted to know, can a violent man change? Because I wanted some life in my life too. So that's why I asked him, will they change? Why don't they change? So he has written, I don't believe a woman should be encouraged to try to work out her relationship with an abuser, because I find improvement unheard in the absence of criminal prosecution combined with specialized better intervention counseling. So now my question to Rachel Ellis is, if it is so difficult to change an abuser, can a victim be taught to draw boundaries to protect herself? Is it possible, and can we draw boundaries?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, every time you listen to a story like this, it's as though your own story is being repeated. So there is definitely a pattern, and thank you, Pramila, for coming up front and sharing, because there's nothing to hide in things like this. Before answering, Latha, there are a few points like I just want to make, and then I want to just give one answer to that. First of all, we have to remember, for any change to happen, it needs to start within you. You are the one who has to bring about the change. Others will not change. Okay, that's one point. And speaking truth, no matter what condition we are in, is very, very vital, because only truth will set you free. I'm not just blaming, but these are some points if we can remember. Well, even I learned this along the way. So that's the second thing. The change starts from within. I need to change. The second thing is we need to speak the truth. No matter what is the effect, but according to the word, truth will always set you free. Okay, I hold on to that very strongly. Okay. And the third important thing is, I'm a Christian, so I believe a marriage has to be like the relationship between Jesus Christ and the church. The Bible tells that Jesus loved the church so much so that he died for it. And when the groom can die for you, I'm sure the woman will submit completely. The bride will submit 100%, because there is no greater love than giving your life. That should be the relationship between a husband and wife, not that of control, not that of abuse. Definite no. Okay. And the third point, I was just making down some points like as I was listening to the story. Yeah. And speaking against abuse in any relationship, not just between a husband and wife, even between in-laws and you or parents. There are many times I have counseled children who have had very abusive parents. But speaking up against that is very, very vital, because if not anything, at least they need to hear that was abusive. Whatever you said, you did, that is abusive and it is not acceptable. Now, as Latha was explaining all these things, I do understand the cycle. It's difficult to break. But we also heard Pramila say that when she started trusting God, when she started drawing strength from there, she became who she was actually intended to be. Right? God has definitely given us a spirit of boldness and freedom. And the kind of relationship I think that we come into when we get into this relationship with God is of total freedom, but under his umbrella. So everything that God is, we become that because we carry his genes. We are his blood. And so that empowers us to stand up against anything that is wrong. God does not accept these things. Okay. Yeah, I also come from a background which teaches, oh, women be submissive, and you don't back answer your husband, and the husband is God. In Hindi we say Pati Parmeshwar hai. No, there is no Parmeshwar other than God. Pati is just Pati, that's all. Husband is just a husband. Okay, so I think the change has to begin with us. And I would say, begin with you being a mother. Teach your boys to respect women. Teach your girls to stand up for what is right, to stand up for truth. Now, coming to setting boundaries, a definite yes. So what are the boundaries? It's different for each one. It's different. So you know what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. Everyone has strengths. Keeping that in mind, set your boundaries. Learn to say no once you've identified this is abuse. Many women don't even know that they're being abused. They feel it's okay. Pati hai na. Matlab, he's my husband. It's okay. It's not okay. Totally unbiblical. God doesn't want husbands to be like that. So yes, important to set boundaries. And how do we set boundaries? Is to identify your own strength and talk about it. As long as it is under the darkness, you keep it shut, it's going to get powerful. The minute you open about it, talk to your neighbors. I feel neighbors are the best help. They come before your parents. They come before your, relatives and before your friends. Your neighbors form the strongest support system. Tell your neighbors, I need help. I'm sure they will go out of their way to help you. So we don't have to take the abuse. We can always stand against it. And you know your strengths. I have a maid who comes every day in the morning and sings about the stories that happens in the night. I just told her one day, don't talk to me about these things. She said, Are Didi, I'm telling you. I said, you're not doing anything. Are main kya kar sakti ho? I said, you can say no, don't give him money. When he asks for money, why do you give? Are mera pati hai na. He tells her, go get chicken and cook for me. I said, why do you bring? No, wo marega. I said, wapas mara na, kha ke bhi mara. I mean, he had the chicken and still he hit you. So at least learn to say no. Stand up for your right. I said, kar sakti ho? I said, of course you can do. So for everyone, it is a different. She can't leave the husband. She said, hamare mein pati ko nahi chodte. I said, pati ka haath pav to tod sakte. I mean, you can break his hands and legs if he raises it against you. Are you not strong enough? I mean, I'm not encouraging violence, but I'm asking you to protect yourself. That's what I tell my mate. Stop him. Okay, so boundaries have to be set according to your strength. and according to your weaknesses. So calculate everything, but come against that. Start speaking about it. This is one very strong thing I've realized. Abusers get scared about their image in the society. They don't want their good image to get spoiled, at least not in front of their girlfriends and the women clan that follow them because of the nice, handsome guy that is outside. The sweetest guy, what a lucky woman you are. What a great husband you have. No, talk about it. So start from there. Start by speaking the truth. And you will realize that you can do much more than that. Because we all have the power that God has put within us. We are strong. We are much, much stronger than what we think we are. Yeah, talk about it. Take the help from your neighbors. Take the help from your neighbors. And I am sure, I have seen that in so many of my people's lives, in my friends' lives, in my own life. The way neighbors stand with you, no one can stand with you. Yeah, so these are some points. Definite yes for boundaries, and how you draw your boundaries, you know it. You are powerful. You don't have to believe in the lies that your husband speaks into your lives. Or if husbands are listening who are being abused, you don't have to listen to your wives when they speak lies about you. You know the truth and you believe in yourself. This is very important. Believe in who you are. Do not let the lies overpower you. You know who you are. God made you very unique, very special. What you can do, nobody else can do.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Now we have Beulah. She is an advocate with us, and she counsels many of the abuse victims. So many of the abuse victims at once, when they ask for a lawyer, I send them to her. So now, in Pramila's case, she was telling that she has been complaining to the police again and again, but still she was getting abused after that. And now, if somebody gets divorced, and even after that, a person who is divorced, that even after next divorce, he comes and tries to abuse, is there any law to protect them from stalking or from their ex, abuse from their ex?
Yeah, of course. First, hi, everyone. Thank you, Pramila, for sharing that. I'm sure you need a lot of courage to walk back that memory lane of harsh memories. And I second what Sister Rachel said also. Yes, the change comes from within. I think women are being abused because they let men abuse them. You know, the time, because law is very favorable to women. The Indian laws, like you have, and even when you go to the police station, they're always very supportive of a women, because from time immemorial, women have been oppressed, women have been abused, and they have been victimized. So the law is very, very supportive of women, but women just don't want to come because, of course, they have the worry of status, and they have the worry of what people will say, and how am I going to live without a man? Because these are the constraints which women face, and the society, they think, okay, what are they going to tell? And that's why. But when it comes to law, law is favorable to women, and there are many laws which protect. Now, to answer the question of Sister Latha, yes, the IPC, that's the Indian Penal Code, 354D, says that stalking is an offense. Stalking or using any kind of abusive language. When a woman is married to a man, she can go under Section 498A of the Indian Penal Code for cruelty arising out of marriage, and also domestic violence, where there's physical, emotional, financial, and economic abuse, and emotional abuse, and all of that. So she has domestic violence as well as 498A. And if the husband has tried to abuse her or assault her, yes, there are different sections for criminal intimidation, for assault, and all of that. But after the marriage, if somebody is stalking and somebody is being, trying to again, try to threaten you, or kind of follow you, or try to defame you, there are sections for that under the Indian Penal Code. Like I said, for stalking, it's Section 354. Where you can go directly to the police, or call 100 if you fear some kind of a threat inside the confines of your home, or go to the nearest jurisdictional police where you are and file a complaint against a perpetrator or the abuser. And the police will take action, and women have the all women's police station in every district they are. So they also immediately take action. So that way, and there is the helplines also, like the police helpline where women can immediately call. So there's so many provisions, but it's just that women need the courage, and they can, take the abuser to the court. And these are, some of them are non-bailable offenses. And if they're arrested and an FIR is lodged, at least, immediately they would file a non-cognizable report and take the complaint. And if the police refuses to take the complaint, they can go to a higher police, like the DCP of the area, deputy commissioner, or the commissioner. So there are laws. It's just that women have to come out of the confines of their mind and their homes and not let themselves be abused.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Beulah, and thank you, Rachel. Now I would like to give it to Jishya for the panel discussion for just 15 minutes. Before that, I wanted to tell one small, 2 minutes, why we tell stories. If you read the Bible, you can understand when Israel remembered the stories that told them who they were, where they had come from, and who their God was, they prospered. When they quit telling the stories, they didn't prosper. And so that's why Joshua ordered each of the tribes of Israel to make a rock, to contribute a rock, to commemorate God's provision for them in leading them across the river Jordan. So the rock monument in their midst is a story prompt. It will cause the children of Israel, the next generation, also to ask, why are these rocks here? That question will prompt the story. So your new generation will understand the power of God. And the story in Joshua ends with these words. He did this so that all the nations in the earth will know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, so that you may always fear the Lord your God. Yes, the Lord is powerful. Yes, our God is a God who brings us out of slavery, like the great Exodus. He opened the Red Sea. He opened the river Jordan. That same way, he brought many of us out, like Pramila. And we thank God for these great stories. And we also pray for those people who are going through such difficulties. Let me pray in 1 minute and then close it. Precious Heavenly Father, Lord, I give this time into your hands. Let many stories of redemption arise, Lord Jesus. And Father, those who are going through with abuse right now, we give them into your hands. Protect them with your nail-pierced hand, Lord Jesus. And Lord, guide them. And let them not listen to any worldly voices. Let them be able to hear clearly your voice of love and grace and power, which is not of fear. Lord Jesus, direct them in the right path and lead them in the path of redemption. And thank you for Pramila. Bless her richly. Let these memories not torture her. Let her loneliness not trouble her, but you become everything for her. You said that you will become a husband to those who do not have a husband. You said that the Lord of hosts is your husband. And Lord, provide her everything what she needs, and provide those who are alone in their life everything they need. Bless them with your love and grace and power. Thank you once again for this wonderful time. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. Now I open to panel discussion with Jishya.
Thank you, Dr. Latha Christie, and more power to you, Pramila, for opening up and sharing it. It was truly mind-blowing. And thank you, Rachel, for seasoned counseling. And thank you, Beulah, for bringing out, Sister Beulah, for bringing out what is really happening, because most of us, we are succumbed to the situation and we do not know how to really go about it. And to all of them here, we have around 50 plus participants. We quickly encourage you to post your questions here on the chat box. Any question related to abuse or whatever we've been listening through, we encourage you to post your questions. So we have our panelists to answer the questions. Here we go. Come on. Should I call your name or you'll be posting it on the chat box? Okay, Vaishali ma'am, please go ahead with your question. You said, do you do couple counseling in abuse cases to know the real dynamics of abuse as something? Sometimes it is the behavior of both parties contributing to the abuse. So do we do any counseling on that? And how do we really find this is abuse? Rachel, ma'am, you can talk about it.
Yes, definitely there is counseling, couple counseling happening. Please get in touch with us. You can call us on our helpline, and we have a proper organized system that happens, and we will get back to you.
Okay.
Actually, I think that question is, in an abuse situation, is couple counseling right or not? So for that one, I would like to answer, in an abuse situation, if you bring the abuser and the victim together for a couple counseling, in front of the counselor, the victim will not be able to speak out the truth because she will have the fear what will happen to her. And so what will happen is, in front of the counselor, the abuser will look like the victim and the victim will look like an abuser. So many times couple counseling goes wrong in the case of domestic violence. So normally people don't encourage couple counseling for an domestic violence cases. They do abuse therapy, and for an abuse therapy, you need to train the mind of an abuser that whatever he has learned has to be unlearned, because from the childhood he has been learned that power and control brings victory. So that has to be removed, and he should become a serving person, a loving person, a giving person, like how Christ gave his life as a sacrifice. Unless that happens, he touches the rock bottom and find that he will lose his wife and children. And even in the case of a wife, I'm not telling only women suffer, it's men also suffer. So whatever it is, the other person should understand that they will hit rock bottom, they will lose everything if they continue abuse. Then there is a chance to change.
Thank you, Dr. Latha. And there's a question that's come up. If at all I'm in abuse, what is the helpline number that I can immediately reach out to? Beulah ma'am, can you talk about it?
See, you can call 100, which is the Hoysala police. That I don't know in which state you are, but here we call 100 and the Hoysala police do come immediately. Because in that jurisdiction, no, every jurisdiction has police stations, and the Hoysala police is over there. They would immediately come in 5-10 minutes.
Rachel, you can also tell about our helpline number, the number. We have a helpline number 8801858585. So Rachel, can you tell how many languages we have and what you do? You're muted.
Yeah, in this helpline, like we cater to all the South Indian languages, Hindi, English, and some Marathi, some in Marathi too. So you can call us on this number, and we have trained counselors placed locally there from wherever the caller is calling us, and we could connect them, and we could extend all kinds of help to them. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We've not received any more questions. So if at all you would like to ask something.
I have a question here with me.
Okay.
I am stuck in a situation where people are trying to spiritualize the situation and asking me to forgive and forget and live for the sake of the ministry my parents are heading. I don't want to live in this accusive situation for my entire life. So this is really a very difficult situation, because they say that in the case of a non-Christian marriage, coming out of an abusive situation is very easy. But in a Christian setup, we always think, we know that our God has told us, forgive, not only 7 times, 7 into 70 times, right? That is true, he said, but in what condition? So in this case, it is not forgiving. It is you're believing the false promises and you're going back. So what happens is, in this situation, it puts you down. So God doesn't want you to live in fear. The same God who said 7 into 70 times forgive, who said in Malachi that you should divorce is wrong, he also said it is wrong to cover the garments of your wife with violence, with blood. So he hates violence. He is on the side of the oppressed. And forgetting and forgiving an evil person and trying to go back and trusting him is not a Christian concept. Trust is different. Forgiving is different. Forgiveness is for the sanity of the person who are abused. Because many times when we are abused, we keep the bitter thoughts within us and that eat us. So, without allowing us to be killed, if we forgive, if that God alone enables us to forgive an offender. So God who enables, because we look at the cross, and on the cross, Jesus was abused and Jesus was put through torture. But why he took it? There is a purpose. There's a purpose behind it. That is a redemption. He took the torture for a redemption. But an abused victim is not taking for redemption. She believes that her husband will change. But what happens is her life becomes a vegetable, her children becomes abusive or a victim. So it's not a redemptive situation. So you can never compare that situation to this. And the forgiveness is God's gift and he enables. It's a process. You cannot force an abused victim to forgive at once.
Thank you, Dr. Latha. We have another question. For financial abuse, what are the legal steps that can be taken?
For financial abuse, if you're still in the marriage, then you will have to file for maintenance for you and the child. So there are different provisions of law under the Divorce Act for Christians. You can ask maintenance. And for the child also, there's a provision to ask maintenance. And even under the Domestic Violence Act, you can ask for maintenance. Under section, so many sections are there. So these are, so you have 3-4 provisions where you can ask. There's a separate, under Criminal Procedure Code, also section 125 allows you to seek maintenance for you and a minor child, for the wife and minor children. So maintenance is the only option you can do. Of course, legal fees also will be an issue when you are not earning and you're a homemaker. In that sense, there is something called the Legal Services Authority in the state where you could get it done freely, but I wouldn't say that it would be very, I don't know how effective that is, but there is that. And yeah, but you would definitely get maintenance from the court. It's a matter of time because nothing happens overnight. You know, the judiciary in the country is over and the courts are overburdened with cases. So it takes a long time, but you will definitely get maintenance.
Thank you, Beulah ma'am. And there's another question. I wanted to name it as anonymous, except for physical. Sorry?
Rachel, can
Am I audible?
Counseling question, I think.
Except for physical and alcoholic, I have experienced abuse. My sons aged 25 and 20 are suffering. I have no idea on how to go about it or helping my kids. Rachel ma'am, can you go about it? The children are suffering, young kids.
When you say they are suffering, I assume it is emotional suffering. And yeah, the children definitely need a place to ventilate. They need to talk about what they go through, or their experience is very different from what you have gone through as a wife. And as children, like they always are targets. Actually, they are not supposed to be the targets, but they are. So it's good for you to encourage them to ventilate, talk to somebody. You can call, as we have counselors who can do youth counseling and help them now. Otherwise, the cycle continues, like how Dr. Latha shared. You know, if they don't get out of this, it's going to accumulate and turn into something bad. So get help.
Thank you, ma'am. And there's another question. I think the answer is yes for this, but if you want to add some nuggets to it, I would encourage somebody to talk about it. Do we have counseling for young girl who had gone through and she's from a difficult background? Do we have counseling for her? Can that be repaired again or mended again?
Definitely, yes. Definitely, yes. There's nothing impossible because God is the one who heals and restores. So yes, they just have to reach out. That's all.
So
okay.
Actually, we have set up where through the website, we have a contact form. So you can connect us through the contact form. In that, there is a prayer. If you want prayer for different reasons, you can ask for it. If you want counseling also for different reasons. And we have specialized counselors in this particular field and they will connect back. And we have different languages. You can connect us in directly also. You can call us through the number 8801-858585. And we have Tamil, English, Kannada, Hindi. So deborahrice.org, don't forget. Please contact us and we have counselors in every area.
Thank you, ma'am. And according to Christian law, how long it takes to get divorced? when you're separated for more than 6 years, and if one spouse is not willing, how do we go about it? Beulah ma'am, would you want to address this?
Yes, sure. So it's not like, the Christian law is different or the Hindu law is different as when it comes to the length of the time. Now, your question is, if you're divorced, if you're apart for more than 6 years, so there are two ways you can go about it. Ask your spouse if he's also willing for the divorce, and you file a mutual, which is a matter of 6 months, you get your divorce if it's mutual and you agree on everything, all the terms, like whatever has to be given, whatever has to be, your belongings and your children custody, all of that can be addressed in a mutual document and filed before the court. It's a mutual consent, and the time period is 6 months. But if your husband isn't agreeing for a divorce, then you will have to file a contested petition, and that depends how long he wants to drag it. So it's something like, at least in Bangalore, what I know is it takes something between 2 years, a minimum of 2 years to a maximum of 4-5 years. And then if it is appealed, if the decision is appealed, then it goes to the High Court. It'll take another 5-6 years. So I would advise a mutual. If both of you can agree and file a mutual, it gets done in 6 months.
Thank you, ma'am. And before getting into the next question, we've got 5 more minutes left. You can even post your questions. We are not going to pull out your names, okay? And this is a personal question asked by someone. In case of emotional and mental abuse, what are the signs that we can find in the victims, and how do we cope up with this? He's doing that so that we will leave the home. Is he doing or abusing so that we will leave the home? Please do not tell my name. Yeah. So how do we find this, that this person wants to pushes us out from the house, or this is the sign of the abuser? Any of you can answer this. Should I repeat the question again?
Yeah, please read out.
In case of emotional and mental abuse, what the victim react? He is doing that so that we will leave the home. So how do I find out that he's doing this so that I would leave the house, is what they're asking, is what I understand. I've just read it like that.
She feels that I think the abuser is doing mental and emotional abuse so that he wants her to leave him and go. So how do I find out? I think that is the question. So I think that
Yes.
because every abuser has a reason behind his abuse. It's always about control. So for example, he wants to keep his wife under his custody, and he wants to do whatever he wants by her. Then he abuses and tries to keep her in his control. But now if a person doesn't want his wife to be with him and he wants to send her away, then also he can abuse, and then also he can give psychological and emotional pressures. So if he keeps telling that through his abusive way that better you leave, and everything points out towards that, then you can easily find out. So everything with a purpose. Abuse is with a purpose, it is done.
Okay, a person has another relationship. He's not abusive, so he wants me and my kids to leave. How do I go about it?
Rachel?
Yeah. I repeat the question. My spouse has another relationship. He's into another relationship. He wants me and my kids to leave. How do I go about it?
Okay, if he already has, and if he has confessed to it, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, very much.
If he already has another relationship and he has confessed that he doesn't want to move on, I think she needs to make a call. She needs to take a decision. I mean, whether abusive, this itself is abusive, right? It's an emotional abuse. Like you have a wife and you go and have an affair. It's definite no. I mean, that is an abuse. So in that case, she needs to take a call whether she can stay. She wants to stay in a relationship where she is not wanted, or she wants to walk out. And like how Beulah ma'am said, they can come to a mutual consent and just move out.
So Beulah, you have any points from law side for that question?
It's very rightly said, Sister Rachel said that, it's a call she has to take. Now, does she want to continue in a marriage where, there's adultery and where, she's not given any kind of a priority? Because priority cannot be an option for any wife, right? So she can, that was a ground for divorce. Adultery is a ground for divorce under the Divorce Act and under Hindu Marriage Act and other acts. So it also causes mental cruelty. But of course, the wife may fear, how am I going to go about? I don't have a house, I don't have a roof, I'm a homemaker. How are my children going to be supported? So in that instance, so she can file a complaint and then, get the person out of the house and file for maintenance in the court for her and the child. That's again under the Domestic Violence Act and under the Maintenance Act, Criminal Procedure. So, yeah.
Continue. You are telling, continue.
Yeah, so these are our options. But then it's definitely not like you file and immediately get the next day. You will have to, wait for some time, at least a minimum of 6 months to get the remedy from the court, because nothing happens overnight. It takes time.
There is another question for you. It
Okay.
was sent to me
Thank you.
personally. In abuse, if it becomes a police case, will that help to go to court and get divorce easier or sooner?
See, that is one of the factors that is considered, because the very fact that the wife has gone and filed a criminal case itself shows that she has been subjected to cruelty, either mental or physical. It could be both also. So definitely the court will look into it. And if the wife has sought for divorce, yes, that is a ground. That adds and corroborates to the fact that the wife has been subjected to cruelty. And see, a wife, when she files for divorce, she needs to prove cruelty. That could be through a police complaint, that could be through an abusive WhatsApp message or email, or it could be a audio or video conversation, or it could be the wife would have written letters that she's being abused. So all this is evidentiary. So these are documents, and in a court of law, it's black and white that matters. What you produce before the court, and the burden of proof is on the person who says that she was subjected to cruelty. So she needs to prove cruelty for her to get a divorce.
Thank you, ma'am. So to put it in a nutshell, if we've got last 2 minutes left, and participants, if you want to ask anything, you may raise your hands probably. Okay, so before they would ask the other questions, ma'am, can each of you all put it in a nutshell? Probably this question is for Rachel, ma'am. Ma'am, can you tell what are the signs that we can look out in the spouse? Because we are just engulfed or endorsed in love. We are intoxicated in love. And we, as women, we just look out for love. But without knowing, they are abusing us at some point or the other. So is there any sign that we can spot out, or any red flag that's there to find I am in an abusive relationship? Asking this on behalf of everyone.
Okay. Love, I would translate it as respect and care. Not what we feel when we are 18 and 20. But as we grow up, it is respect to one another, and it is care that is shown. So if you feel that in your marriage there is no respect, no trust, and no care, it's time for the bells to ring. Very, very important. Love is not about what you feel, or the roses that comes, or the gifts that come, or anything like that, or the sweet talks. There could be no sweet talk at all, but if the guy or the woman can respect and trust and care for one another, and that's when you know that everything is fine. If any one of these things are missing, please be alert, check out for yourself and see what's wrong. Something is definitely wrong. And then you need to make that change. You need to voice out. And I would always say it is okay. It's okay for us to speak of what we are going through. And it's always the truth that will set you free. So accept for yourself and talk about what you're going through.
I wanted to tell another important thing. Every premarital counseling, they should teach this red flag. because this is very important and we ignore it. And that's why many end up in this. They abusers clearly give a red flag. It can be a man or it can be a woman, because you can easily say they'll just come into your whirlwind of romances. Fast they'll get into your romance, and sometimes they make you to pity them. So they just see that as though they are a broken machine, and you are the only one who can make that broken machine fine. And without you, they will die, they will do suicide, and all such things. They are red flags. They are not love, and they'll be very possessive. They'll be too jealous. They'll try to see that you are their property. They should give you freedom. You are not a property. You are not a land to be possessed by them. So they should give you free hand. If a person doesn't give you free hand, try to possess you, tries to think you are a property of him, it's a red flag, and tries to find out that he's marrying you for something else, for your property, for your beauty, or for your thing. In a real marriage, what happens is it's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice of love. You love, that's what Jesus and, the Trinity, the love that was between them. It's an equal love. It's a submissive love. It's an overpowering. It's a sacrificial love. That is the real love that should be established. That's what God, the Father, established in the Garden of Eden. So you should be very careful when you're choosing someone.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. For those of you who are going to watch it on YouTube, I think this red flag sign, if you're caught up somewhere here, we would encourage you to reach out to us. Please do connect with us, and we'll be able to help you out. The legal team and the counseling team will be able to help you out. And Pramila, ma'am, I just want to ask you one question, probably on behalf of audience. If at all you knew something was wrong happening, and you thought to yourself, okay, let me tolerate, let me go with it. It's just okay, I'm a girl, I'll have to endure it. All of that was there in the story. But if at all you had no financial independence, would you have stepped out, or how you would have reacted? Because a few are questioning us that we are housewives and we are solely dependent on the soulmate. So knowing being in an abusive relationship, does financial independence play an important role, ma'am?
Definitely it does play, I'll tell you. So it's not about only professional work. We can do any kind of job. God has really, when He made us, He has fearfully and wonderfully made us. He's given us the power to produce wealth. He's not against His word that He's not made us capable. So financial freedom plays a role, but even if financial freedom was not there, there is a verse in the Bible which says, pursue peace, pursue peace. So would you not pursue peace and pursue a relationship that has, steals you of your identity, steals you of your freedom of choices? It puts you in a doubt situation of yourself. I mean, from naturally how you are brought up or born in your parents' house, suddenly there's a shift in your character. You're doubting yourself, everything. So what God did was He brought me back to the originality of how He created me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for bringing out that we'll have to pursue peace. And Tanuba, sister, you've got a question. You've raised your hand. Suggestion. Okay, yes, please. You may talk, ma'am. Tanuba, ma'am, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Not a question. It was about.
Can you speak little loudly?
Little louder, yeah.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. Now it's audible.
Yeah, it is not a question. It's just a very small suggestion, because I myself have gone through this, what we are discussing about. There was a question raised by one sister that, like, my husband is wanting me to leave the house. I will suggest not to sign any papers, not to open any bank account separately, because these can be used against her in the court if they are going for divorce or any kind of thing. So kindly not sign any documents anywhere.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. You are suggesting us not to sign into any documents. Do we have any other questions, or we'll wrap it up?
Question.
Last 1 minute.
What about I am married and facing financial abuse? to a very great extent. So what is the cover that I have to approach the court when I'm still married for the financial abuse that I'm suffering?
Latha ma'am, can you answer
Yeah,
this?
Yula is not there. So what's your question? Can you repeat again? So you are struggling with financial abuse, right? So now um, you have come out of your marriage or still in marriage. Can you tell some more about it?
So I'm still married, but I'm staying separate.
So you wanted to approach court and get financial freedom. Are you working?
I'm working, but I've been put under a lot of debts. So and I am I have to pay a big amount every month. So and my husband washed off his hand, putting me under debts. So that is the situation I'm facing now. I want to recover, how do I go about this?
I think this is a very difficult question. Many abusers, lot of debts on the victim before leaving. They enjoyed the money till they were there, and then they put it. So if you are listening to this, first itself, be clear that you don't sign any documents together, and be careful that finance plays a lot of role. So if you have to come out, plan in advance and try to save money, try to put it in your account and try to give it to somebody else and do that. But now for your question, you have been put under a lot of debt by your husband, and how would you help that? So I think you need to keep a proper lawyer and find out, like you have to go back to their history and see from what reason he has put it, and try to fight against it in the court. That is the only way, because you have allowed yourself to be abused financially. And pray well. I think God is always there towards the side of the oppressed, and he will help you. Don't lose your confidence. Don't feel down, and pray well. God has made 2 trillion galaxies. He has every amount. If he wants, he can open up the heavens and bless. So he can help you to clear the doubts. Just pray. As Pramila said, where help came, she didn't know. And try to see if you can empower yourself with a better job, and you can earn much better than this present one, so that you can pay off your debt and try to do something like that.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have any more questions? Somebody has suggested to safeguard all our personal certificates and documents from the abusive spouse.
Yeah, many people burn the certificates. Before leaving, they burn. The leaving time is the most difficult period. Many kill them. Many burn their certificates. So that is, many put the debts on them so that they'll not be able to leave. So be careful, keep your certificates, keep your documents with you. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being a part. Thank you, Jishya.
Thank you,
And thank you, Pramila. And thank you, Rachel and Yuna. God bless you all.
Thank you so much.
God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Akka.
Thank you. So let me end the session.